Oh, welcome. Welcome. All right, so I think I'm going to get ready to start now. So, welcome to the Black Archives Safer at Home virtual series. I'm the assistant archivist. My name is Louis Berthen. And today I'm doing my segment called Legacies, Profiles in Greatness, which is basically dedicated to figures in Overtown's history, their accomplishments, and their impact in our community. So this week's segment is dedicated to Florence Gaskins. Florence Gaskins was a truly incredible pioneering businesswoman who dedicated her life to the Colortown community. And so I think by the end of this, you'll be just as impressed with her as I am. So let's get ready to start. Florence Gaskins was born in Jacksonville, Florida in 1863, and she arrived in Miami the year it was incorporated, 1896. So when she arrived in the city, she was a 33-year-old widow. And I believe it's important to mention that because I want you to think in the back of your mind where she was coming to. She was coming to Miami, a brand new city, just established. It was a segregated city, and she was a single black woman coming to the city. So to say that her opportunities were limited would be an understatement. But she excelled in the face of this adversity. So when she got here, she started working as a laundress, which was a very labor-intensive and low-paying job. However, she was really quite successful at it because she prospered. Once she had gathered enough money together, she had actually branched out into real estate. So real estate was a very lucrative trade in early Miami. Some people still consider it to be. Miami was rapidly expanding and clearing land, and the land was speculated for very cheap, very low prices. So we actually have a couple examples of black business people who made their money in real estate. E.W.F. Stirrup in Coconut Grove did, and D.A. Dorsey in Overtown. She actually worked with D.A. Dorsey quite often. So this isn't the only business that she was involved in, though. She actually opened the first black-owned employment agency here in Miami. And she essentially specialized in placing black and Bahamian workers in good work opportunities. However, I'm not only highlighting Florence for her incredible business acumen. She was an incredible community figure. According to various Miami Herald articles that I have, she was a part of many committees around Overtown that were dedicated to the welfare and social good of Colortown and its people. So to name a few, she was the chairwoman of the Colored Workers Committee and the member of the Finance Committee of Booker Washington Community Center. So I want to pay special attention to her being the chairwoman of the Colored Workers Committee. She would have been in a position to be very in tune with what the working people of Overtown were needed at the time, both the men and the women. So I actually have a Miami Herald article here that helps exemplify that. So this article was released in April 1920. Community service be given to the colored section. This meeting was a part of the Red Cross community study and was called to give opportunity for making preliminary arrangements to carry on the work in that community. For preliminaries to carry on the work in that community. It was held in Mount Zion Baptist Church. The speakers told also how mothers compelled to work for their living and having no one to care for their little children, while the mothers are absent from home, lock the children in their homes and leave them there all day and into the night. This, in Mr. Murdoch's opinion, leads to the need for a day nursery. A small beginning in this direction has been made by Florence Gaskins, a well-known colored woman, but funds are lacking to properly carry out this plan. So there's two things I want to know about this. First is that the Red Cross was present in Colortown, and the second, she was fundraising for a daycare nursery before they got here. And in my research, I actually came across a listing in the 1931 Miami Directory. So this listing, you find the Florence Day Nursery, located at 314 Northwest 12th Street. And it had Florence Gaskins' name behind it. So she actually does get to open this nursery for the working women of Overtown. And I think this not only highlights her sense as a businesswoman, I think it also highlights her sense of service because it served a dual purpose. Not only is it a business, but it was something that her community needed, and she provided it. But that's not where her work ends. Florence Gaskins continued her work with the Red Cross, and she actually started a Red Cross auxiliary that came to be known as the Black Cross. So the Black Cross's efforts were fundamental during World War I. They actually helped with fundraising for the war effort. So a little background information on World War I. The war started in 1914, ended in 1918, and the U.S. did not get involved in the war until 1917. And if you really want to be technical about it, our soldiers actually didn't land in Europe until 1918. But I digress. So her Black Cross was fundamental in making the war-saving stamp drive and the Liberty Loan Drive successful. So what are these things? These were fundraising efforts that were happening nationally, but her and her Black Cross were very important in making it work. So I have another newspaper article. Enthusiasm among Negroes. Colored citizens responded loyally to call of their country to buy war-saving stamps. So I'm going to read you the first paragraph, then I'm going to skip to the end. The colored citizens are leaving no stone unturned to make the war-saving stamp drive a success. They're responding in a most loyal and encouraging manner to their campaign leaders. And I'm skipping to the end. Selling stamps on the streets. There are several booths at which stamps are being sold on Avenue G, the leading business thoroughfare in the colored section. These are in the charge of Mrs. Louise Monroe, Mrs. Mamie Thompson, Mrs. Nellie S. Powers, and Mrs. Florence Gaskins, the latter being better known as the mother of the Red Cross work there. So I want to highlight something in that article. It mentions Avenue G as the main business thoroughfare. And for those of you who don't know, Avenue G today is known as 2nd Avenue, which is where the Lyric Theater is located. So this street has always been very important to Overtown's history. And her booths were important in making this stamp drive a success. But that's not the only way that she supported the soldiers going back to the war. She actually also organized, along with R.E.S. Toomey, a large Christmas dinner / parade for the returning veterans. So let me read you that article. Christmas dinner for Negro soldiers back from camps. Now that the war is practically over and our boys, white and black, are returning in constantly increasing numbers, we feel it incumbent on us to indicate to them our appreciation in every possible way. There have returned to us about 60 or 70 of the colored boys, and in order to impress them with what they mean to Miami and Dade County, the state and country, the Colored 4-Minute Men and the Colored Red Cross have arranged to give them a first-class Christmas dinner at the Woodman's Hall, Colortown, at 12 o'clock Christmas Day. The white soldiers in uniform are requested to be in line with the Honor Guard Band. The dinner will be preceded by a parade through the principal streets of Miami, led by the colored band and preceded by a cordon of the police guard under Chief of Police Dillon. This parade will move from the Woodman's Hall at 10 o'clock sharp and return in time for dinner. While at dinner, there will be brief talks by the following gentlemen: Mayor J.W. Watson, Mr. Edwin Nelson, Rev. J.R. Evans, Rev. S.H. Savage, Reverend J.W. Drake, Dr. W.A. Chapman, Dr. J.R. Scott Jr., Mr. R.A. Powers, and Mrs. Mary Lamazney and C.S. Thompson. The committee is requesting friends to contribute in provisions or money to the solicitors who may come to them. Donations may be sent to Florence Gaskins, Avenue G and 5th Street, or Lieutenant R.E.S. Toomey, 111 1-2 Avenue G. Signed, R.E.S. Toomey, Chairman of 4-Minute Men, and Florence Gaskins, the President of the Colored Red Cross. So again, I think this just really highlights the amount of work that she put into the community and how many different places she was active in, not only for the workers, but for the soldiers. And her work doesn't end there. She was also essential in the building of the Christian hospital. This was, for those who don't know, the first hospital to be open in the colored section of Miami for the colored folk of Miami. So the Miami Herald wrote an article in 1921 when the hospital was being dedicated. And it wrote about who was at the event, who donated, and they credited Florence with not only being one of the people who helped fund the construction, but someone who helped do the legwork to help establish the hospital. So in this article, it actually says that she had gathered with the Black Cross $25 for the construction of the hospital. Now, I know that in the grand scheme of things, $25 doesn't seem like a big amount of money, but this was 1921. And you also have to consider that the majority of workers in Overtown were laborers. So that dollar amount was hard to gather, and it's an incredible feat that she did, because today with inflation, that sum roughly equals $363. So it is a very large sum of money. Florence Gaskins was also credited with being one of the early organizers for Mount Zion Baptist Church. And this makes a lot of sense, because for someone to be as intimately tied to the community as she was, a lot of the early community organizing, especially in Black Miami, happened within the churches. So to leave you, I think I would like to quote the former publisher emeritus of the Miami Times, Garth Reeves, who I think puts Florence's story best. Florence Gaskins exemplified the true pioneering spirit of a committed woman who carefully assessed the needs of her community and utilized the limited resources to make meaningful change. And I really believe that he put this in better terms than I did, with substantially less words. But Florence was active at a time when the challenges that she would have faced would have stopped a lot of other people. And even in her businesses, we can see that they were dedicated to serving her community and making it a better place. So I think that if we can take anything from today's lesson, it's that we should truly work and not let anything stop us from doing work in our community, because she probably had 1.5 million excuses to not do anything, but it didn't stop her, and she was incredible. So that pretty much covers Florence and the things that she accomplished while she was here in Miami. So if I have any questions, I'd like to thank everyone who joined in a little bit late. I'm sorry, I seem to have flipped this. There we go. So, yep. If I have any questions, I'd like to open it up. Feel free to ask anything, any general Miami questions. I can answer those too. I'm not getting any questions. So, thank you, Mateo, for asking a question, and Vicky. So there were actually many schools, and the hospital was staffed by nurses and doctors who were active in the Colortown community at that time. Her most influential contribution, in my opinion, I think that I personally am a fan of social history, so I think that her efforts with her Black Cross to fund both the war effort in Miami and organizing that large parade, I think were some of her highlights for me personally, because it shows a willingness to work with and to get things done that may have not happened for other women. So I really like that she really pushed the envelope of what was capable for people at this time. And KPZ. So the Black Red Cross, I know it started at least in 1918, and unfortunately, Florence Gaskins passed away in 1933. So if I was to assume, it would probably be that's around the time that it stopped being active. Thank you guys for the questions. They were pretty good. Does the Black Archives? Yes, absolutely. So not only do we have her in some of our books, in like the Linkages and Legacy, you can find her. We have a collection on her as well. And all the research that we do for these sorts of things are going to be available online. So that will also be a resource for people who wanted to do research on Florence Gaskins. Thank you guys for the questions. If there's any other ones that I want to be asked. All right. So I'm going to pretty much cut it there, I think. Stay tuned for the other live segments that we have coming. Tomorrow at 12 noon, we have virtual field trips with director Timothy Barber. And at Saturday at 11 a.m., we have Story Time in Color with Camila Pritchett. So thank you guys for tuning into my first live segment. I was a little bit nervous, but I think it'll get better. I just want to, again, thank you guys. Stay home, stay safe, and I will see you again next week. My segment is going to be on Lieutenant R.E.S. Toomey, who is also an incredible figure. So, bye everybody.